Whether you're just training as a hybrid athlete in general, or you're training specifically for Hyrox, you're probably training about 1 to 2 hours a day on average most days. And this is great. This is a really critical piece of achieving our goals. But what about the other 23 hours in a day? The reality is that those 23 hours are just as critical as the 1 hour that you spend training when it comes to seeing the results that you want to see. One of the key reasons for this is that the adaptations that we're looking for don't happen directly during the workout, but they actually happen after the workout, which, of course, again, as I said, means that the other 23 hours every day are critical in terms of what you do with them and how you spend that time. And so, a question we want to be asking ourselves here is what can I do with these other 23 hours in order to maximize the adaptations that I'm seeking to um, trigger for my body through those training sessions? So I want to divide this into three different categories for today. I'm going to give a bit of a high level overview of each category, and then at some point in the future, we'll do a deeper dive into each of these three categories. So, three categories are sleep, nutrition, and stress. So, let's first take a look at sleep. Of course, this is going to be one of the most critical things for recovery. Um, and it's going to vary a lot from one person to another. But generally, you're looking for, let's say, at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. And that means generally an 8 to 9 hour sleep opportunity because your body isn't necessarily going to be asleep the minute you hit the pillow. And you may also wake up at different times during the night. So, a couple other things we can do to optimize our sleep and try and make sure that we're getting the most out of that 8 to 9 hour sleep opportunity is keep your bedtime and your wake up time consistent. Personally, for me, this has been one of the biggest movers. So, something that Dr. Andrew Huberman talks about a lot. If you can keep, your going to sleep time and your wake up time within about a 30-minute window, including the weekends. I know it can be tempting to sleep in on the weekends, but the more you can keep that schedule aligned, the easier it's going to be on your body to both fall asleep when it's time to go to sleep and wake up when it's time to wake up and get the quality of sleep that you need during that opportunity. Another great way to help with your sleep is to allow the body some time to wind down before you go to sleep. So, generally minimizing stress, no bright lights and screens. Um, and there's a framework I like to follow roughly that's worked quite well for me, which is it's a bit of I believe it's called the 3-2-1 sleep framework, something like that. But the general idea is 3 hours before sleep, you want to be stopping your exercise and food. So no big meals, no crazy intense workouts. And then 2 hours before, you want to be uh, cutting off your fluids. Main reason for that is you don't want to be waking up in the middle of the night to have to go to the washroom. And then 1 hour before, you cut off all screens and technology. Personally, for me, this has worked great. Really helps me let my body know that it's time to sleep and to prepare for that. And I want to add one additional point here on the topic of sleep. Earlier, I mentioned, 7 to 8 hours of sleep with an 8 to 9 hour sleep opportunity. This is, of course, going to vary quite a bit from person to person. Um, and one of the biggest factors here is going to be your training load. If your training load is higher, which is hybrid athletes, when you're doing high training volume, it often is going to be higher. There's a good chance that your body's going to need more sleep. And part of that just comes down to you listening to your body, to what it needs, and making sure that you're giving it the adequate opportunity to recover each night. So you may be looking to go higher than that 8 hours. Uh, 9 could be a good spot. Maybe even 10 if you're in a really intense training bout, and that's just kind of where your body tends to be. That you're the kind of person who needs a bit more sleep. Okay, let's move on to nutrition here. Again, on this topic of higher training volume, along with that high training is going to come a higher caloric need. So that is absolutely one thing to be keeping in mind with hybrid training. Doesn't mean you can go crazy and eat absolutely anything that you want to, and that nothing's gonna happen there. You won't put on any fat. But what it does mean is that you should be intentional with the amount of food that you eat. So what I mean by this is if you feel that for your training, racing, whatever competitions you want to be doing, you need to be leaner or lighter, or maybe you need to put on more muscle and get stronger, or just maintain. Uh, you're going to want to keep that in mind and set the amount of food that you're eating based on which of those three buckets you fall into. And of course, for each of these, there's of course going to be trade-offs. For example, if you're looking at Hyrox, um, you know, if you're leaner and lighter, that might help with your running quite a bit. But at the same time, if you're in a calorie deficit and your energy is low and your strength is down, you're not able to move as well in the stations, well, sure, you might be running faster, but there's a trade-off that happens there. And at the same time, the other end of the spectrum, if you keep adding muscle and getting stronger, again, that's great. You're probably going to be moving better on the stations, but is it going to slow down your running? There's a good chance it will. Along with that, one final recommendation with respect to the amount of food you eat, whichever direction you're going in, whether you're, you know, bulking up or cutting down, uh, I would recommend going slowly. The main reason for this on, the side of getting leaner and lighter is uh, if you're in a huge calorie deficit, it's going to be very hard to train at a high level and put out solid efforts. And at the same time, if you're bulking really fast, there's a good chance that you're just going to be putting on excess fat without much extra muscle from, the really fast, potentially dirty bulk. And in terms of that, putting on muscle, on a related point here, as a hybrid athlete, you're probably experiencing a lot of muscle breakdown. So as far as macronutrients go, one of the things you absolutely want to be prioritizing is getting lots of protein to make sure that your body is fully equipped to rebuild the muscle that you're breaking down. To me, the next most important macronutrient after protein in terms of training as a hybrid athlete is going to be carbs. And specifically, you want to be thinking about when you're taking your carbs. So, unless you're intentionally trying to train fasted to encourage your body to, be a little bit more metabolically flexible, having some carbs before a workout will, in most cases, give you at least a bit of a performance boost. Um, but at the same time, to me, you want to be considering how any food you're going to eat is going to make you feel during training. So, for example, if you have a big meal or, a meal with lots of salt or too many carbs, and you're feeling bloated, you're retaining a ton of water, that's probably going to affect your training session in a not so great way. Versus, a smaller snack with some carbs, maybe an hour before or half an hour before your training session, could be, for some people, potentially great, give you a little boost of energy that will help you perform your best during the training session. Finally, I want to dive into the last category here, which is stress. And I want to start off by highlighting that, generally speaking, when we're talking about stress, there are two different kinds. So You can look at acute stress and chronic stress. So acute stress you can think of as a workout. This is a short-term temporary thing, and this is a good thing. The human body generally thrives when you hit it with acute stress. On the other hand, if you're looking at chronic stress, which is more of a constant long-term thing that is sort of always present, this is not something that's ideal, and it's going to hinder your body's ability to recover and adapt and build back stronger. So with this in mind, whenever we're not working out, we want to be pushing the body towards the parasympathetic system, which is you can think of as the rest and digest system. Again, minimal stress as we're pushing in that direction. And this is going to allow the body to recover and adapt. And there's different things we can do to get into this state. As a few examples, just after a workout, you could do some breathing exercises or spending time just reading a book or just hanging out in a low stress environment with friends and family can be good. But really, to me, this is a personal question of what is relaxing for you. And I would just say, make sure that it truly is relaxing. If it's something that's incredibly stimulating for your brain, then maybe it is not the most relaxing thing. And I find it interesting to just look at heart rate data while I'm doing different activities. For example, if I'm playing a game versus reading a book, if I'm playing some kind of game, then there's a good chance that my heart rate's going up, I'm getting a little bit stressed. Versus if I'm just sitting there reading a book, my heart rate is probably going and dropping down, and my body is dropping into that parasympathetic bias. With all that in mind, if you are looking for help with your Hyrox or hybrid training, you can check out my app, Hybrid Strength Fitness. It is linked in the description.